acidicdwarf. Cool username. Welcome to the stream. Oh, and pizza. So you've got pizza there. You're a new DM. You have run a few sessions, but I find it hard to balance encounters. Any tips on that? Because I almost killed my whole party. It's probably not the case that balance is meaningless, but I feel like balance is sort of a. I don't know that it's actually worth trying to achieve. We want to provide a good challenge, but I'm not. What I mean by that is that there are just too many variables to actually balance anything, right? Because skill level of the players and how strategic they choose to be, how attentive they are. Maybe somebody's on their phone or not really thinking, not on their A game. You're not actually up against stats of characters. You're up against decision-making players, and the best way to, I guess, to use the best way to balance thinking players on the other side of the table is to be a thinking DM during the combat. So I would just change stats on the fly as you need to. Change the circumstances to better fit the idea of the combat that you had in mind. Sometimes I don't intend for a combat to be really, really hard. It's just kind of a fun, interesting threat, and the party gets to be heroic. This happened in a side shot, one shot inside my campaign that I ran a couple weeks ago. It started with the players taking these characters on, brand new characters, because it was a one shot, and there were skeletons coming out of the sand on the beach. And initially there were 2 skeletons, and they were making quick work of those. So there was a third one. I think it was only a 3-round fight. They made pretty quick work of the skeletons, but they were also playing new pre-made characters, so I wanted them to get a shot at fighting, right? That is never going to be a fight that leads to somebody dying, and I'm comfortable with that. Not everything should. In some games, maybe it should, but in my game, it's not always the case. Sometimes it's just kind of a fun encounter. If I do think it's the type of challenge, and this is, I think, probably more getting to the point, if I do think it's the type of challenge that should warrant fear, that should be scary, I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to take my best guess at it ahead of time, and we can use CR levels. We can use, honestly, past experience is best. You're going to start paying attention when you're putting monsters together, like what's their armor class, how hard are they hitting, what's their bonus to attack, and what's their dice damage look like. Paying attention to these sorts of things when you're picking them is going to give you a sense like, okay, well, how many solid hits could this vampire have against one of my party members before they're dead? That'd be a good thing to think about. Challenge rating be damned. Just kind of look at the 2 things and go, how long could they survive? But more importantly, I think when we actually get into the combat, we have a lot, I won't say infinite options, but we have a lot of options to, if we have to use the word to rebalance things. I have a video about this, actually. One of my favorite ways to do it is that I don't give my enemies, or I should say I rarely give enemies in my combats static stat blocks, static HP. I give them an HP range. So you can see me doing this even in the stat blocks that I'm writing here. Let me jump to this Feral Echo. I just do this by habit. It's like it's basically like a snake that slows everybody down in the vicinity. Its HP is 3d12 plus 6. That means that their HP is at least 9 and at most 45. Well, how's that useful? Well, first of all, I get that by saying if you roll 3d12 and you get the bottom of that, that's 3 plus 6 is 9. If you roll 3d12 and get the max, that's 12, 24, 36 plus 6. I did math wrong. 36 should be 42. So 9 to 42. I use, for almost all of my creatures or all of my enemies in combat, I use that range. that means that it can't die until it's taken 9 hit points of damage. And once it's taken 42 points of damage, it has to die. And in between, I use my best judgment. So what does that mean? Well, in an example like I was mentioned before with the 3 skeletons on the beach, I have a similar sort of range for their HP. Each one of them has a range. I don't think every monster should have the same HP, even of the same type. You know, each of these skeletons has some variable HP. You know, I don't even know what it is when I start the combat. And it turns out that their 3rd level characters are hitting pretty hard. Okay, then I'm probably going to make the call. These are higher. This HP is in the higher end of the range, right? I'm still using the range. I'm still bucketed by the stat block. I'm not just making stuff up, even though that's probably okay too. But I'm going to say, okay, these guys maybe they're going to hit the maximum in this case. I'm going to use the sliding scale and say these are tougher ones. But if I throw a couple of vampires at the party and all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, like you're saying, acidic dwarf, my party's screwed. Like they're about to be wiped out by these guys. I'm going to probably slide that HP down to the low end of the scale. Probably not 9 and 42, but whatever that low end for a vampire is, I'm going to say. It turns out these are weaklings. Turns out the tougher ones are still out there somewhere, and these were, a preview of what's to come. And the one way that I try to be fair about this, because I realize that using this range, some people get really upset about it. Which I get to some extent. It feels like I'm breaking the rules, right? Or it feels like, hey, we're all agreeing to something and you're ruining it. Well, the stat block is whatever I say it is when the game starts, right? So, I mean, if we don't have that trust between player and DM, then what are we even doing? So setting that to the side, one thing that I do implement to keep myself honest, and the players, I think, unknowingly help me with this, is whatever placement in the range I pick, it's usually not an exact number. I just, once the fight starts, I go, okay, this is going to be a low end, this is going to be a high end, somewhere in the middle. I solidify that HP at the point in time where they're bloodied. So if we use this example of 9 to 42, if the fight starts, I'm like, oh, okay, so this is going to be, these skeletons need a little bit more buffer to make this a fun fight. So it's going to be 42. Okay, well, 21 then is the point at which they're bloodied. Their HP is locked in, and I have that. Sometimes it takes a few hits, and I go, okay, turns out it's somewhere in the middle. I'm basically, when I let the party know that somebody's bloodied, I'm also writing down how many hit points it has left. I've made the decision at the halfway point of that creature's life that this is how much more it has. And I think I found that to be a good, balance between kind of making a game time decision, but also committing myself to something. Because I think it is important as a DM to, like, we're committing to a number and we're going to let the dice decide. So that having that sort of halfway point, I think, is important. But yeah, don't be afraid to let that kind of stuff fluctuate, especially in the case where you're sitting there going, I did not mean for this fight to be this hard. I screwed up. The only time that I will not let a player character die is when it's my fault. That's the only time that I step in. The players can come up with all sorts of things to save player characters. If I screwed something up, and as a result of that, they're losing a character, then I'll change it. I'll figure out how to undo or Deus Ex Machina the situation to make sure that that's not the reason. Every player character should die the honest way, which is when they fall down in battle and everybody thinks, we've got like another couple rounds before we need to save them, right? Every player character should perish after making 3 bad decisions in a row. That right? I think that's generally how it goes. Anyway, hope that helps.